I see the world as inside the cells that's inside of me. Prodigy, living my life like I won the lottery because I did. I know my presence a gift and I'm rich, God's favored and born to be doing this. What up? Today we are talking about what game are you playing, yo? What is the game that you are playing? You know that this is all a game, right? You know that this experience can be perceived as a game, and it is a game. It is a game, and it's such an intricate game. It's a game where the rules are created by the players. It's a game where the rules are created by the players. And if you don't know that, though, you will be playing a game with a narrow set of rules and a narrow set of goals. And you might miss the whole thing. You might miss just how powerful you are and the whole scope of things. And all these potentialities will be outside of your grasp because you aren't able to stop and consider what game you're playing. And that's why in several episodes we've talked about doing less. We've talked about detachment. We've talked about removing yourself from your typical patterns, your typical assumptions, and coming up with new narratives and being more attentive and more attentive of the intuition, more attentive of the external world to apply your own language to the things that are happening to you and the things around you and the way that you feel about them and what you want. Because that is how you develop the rules for your game that benefit you, will produce the best outcomes for you. So I don't know about you, but I was taught, I'm an immigrant myself from Guadeloupe, from the Caribbean. And my mother is also an immigrant. She came over at the same time. I came with her when I was 4 or 5 years old. And the lesson that she taught so often as we grew up in Brooklyn was to be safe, to follow the rules, to work hard, to network. You want to be generally liked. You want to network and follow rules. When I got older, that evolved a bit more where it's not just following rules, but chase money, get the bag. Everything's about money. The rules are do whatever you can to make money, to align yourself with a corporation and get a good job and to kind of elevate yourself through the ranks in a corporate space. That was the game. Get the bag. Um, you know, depending on where you are in life, it could be stuff like surviving. The game is to survive. The game is to make it through the next week with whatever the paycheck is or whatever the situation is. And that's the game that we're supposed to be playing. But the game is much bigger than that, bruh. The game is huge. And while I was raised, like I said, on some follow rule stuff, can you imagine there are people who are born up, raised, and taught an entirely different approach where they're not looking for rules, they're not looking for boundaries and avoiding them? That's not their consideration at all. They purely approach life every day with a sense of their own rule setting, their own goal setting, and their own markers for achievement, entirely self-derived. That's powerful stuff. I didn't even know that was a thing until I met a few of these people and I got to see people close up, see how they move and how they see the world, see that the worldviews can be entirely different. So I want to talk very briefly today about the different ways you can play this game and kind of where I find myself right now. And I remember when I was in high school and college, um, I wanted to play football. I wanted to be this football player and I wanted to play in the NFL. And so I had a big goal of being a talented, greedy football player. I knew what were my strengths. I knew what my weaknesses were. And I wanted my body to be a weapon and I wanted to be a football player. And that was the game I was playing. That would be my ticket out. And it was sometime around sophomore year in college, I realized that I was a good football player, not necessarily a great football player, and not necessarily like an elite football player. So the NFL wasn't in my future. And once I realized that, I realized I had to flip the game and change it up a little bit. And I got the opportunity to come to Washington, D.C. and work for a congressman. And I did that for several years. And And then I got disillusioned with Congress and all that stuff. But, life continued on, and I got into this game of the hustle game, of the grind game. I started my company, BB Digital, back in 2008, and I was making animations, and I hustled and I grinded and I networked and I created and I took risks and I learned, and that game, the game there was to become the best digital artist I could be and the best businessman I could be, to understand how to not just create art. It was an interesting time, man. I was around all these different creatives and business people and producers and camera people and directors, and we were creating things for clients. We were creating things for our portfolios, and it was the hustle. It was the hustle. The game we were playing was, make as much money as you can, um, and then build your portfolio as big as you can with the biggest clients you possibly can. And then when I got the opportunity to work at CNN, I realized that the game was a little different. I didn't have to worry about, you know what I'm saying? The salary was consistent. It was a whole different game. But now I'm learning about content. I'm learning how does CNN create 24/7 content? How do they do that? To learn that process, the speed of it, and the little tricks and things there. And I did that, and I did that well, and I had success in that arena. But then I was disillusioned with that space. That space is a messed up space. I talked about this several times on this show. I highly suggest you don't watch the corporate cable news. They are misleading you. And since I left that space in 2020, I believe that's right. It's now 2026. That's crazy how much time has passed. But I really think that the game I've been playing has been a game of pressing into fear. This is a game I didn't know so much about, and it's a game I don't think we are all too familiar with. It's a game we don't typically engage with. We're all hustling or doing our thing, trying to find jobs, trying to find work. It's a down economy. There's all kinds of things. But I truly believe that in the game of life, your best approach, your best plan includes a self-knowing, and a self-knowing will require a pressing into fear. You can't know yourself if you have large swaths of your experience shrouded in shadow, shrouded in fear, things that you won't do, things you won't talk about. You feel comfortable. This is what it means to be comfortable. You settled into a comfortable definition of the self, and you don't expand beyond that. So I think really in the last 6 years, I've been in a very interesting process of unfolding myself. And one of my markers for how to do this is to notice the things that make me fearful, the things that cause anxiety. When there's something on social media that I want to share a post and I double think, I notice that. You should notice that. I think a lot of people, they develop a very consistent pattern, a very consistent ego, and a sense of what is safe and what is good, and what they want to present, and they want to be consistent. They talk about a few things. There's certain things they will speak up about, and other things they ignore. It's outside of their realm. They say, "Oh, they leave that to the experts," or that's too controversial. Leave that alone altogether. And for me, I found a lot of benefit from playing the "What are you fearful about?" game, and lean into that game. It's a wild game. It changes you. I'm telling you that if you engage in that game, that fear, it's about an analysis of the self, and then a pressing into that consistently over time, at your pace. Start small, pick something kind of menial that you can build some courage. You develop, you do something, and you realize, oh, nothing happened. Like it worked. I remember when I first left CNN, or before I left, I knew I had a couple months left, and before I left, I started writing about politics. There's a thing when you sign up and you work at CNN, you sign away your opinions, you sign away your ability to articulate opinions. They don't want employees that have independent opinions, because if you did, obviously you could have an opinion that they don't agree with, and so you're not allowed to have one. Okay. as an editor producer at CNN. And I remember I wrote, one of the things was, the Trump, it was Trump versus Biden. Um, and I wrote a piece about it. I wrote something about it. I think Ice Cube had done something. Ice Cube had warmed up to Trump and did this whole sort of, he had this political agenda for black people, and he warmed up to Trump and visited. And I wrote this thing about it. And I said to Sheba, I was nervous. I was scared. I was fearful. I'm not allowed to do this. The rules are clear. I'm not allowed to do this, you know? And I wrote it anyway. I published it on my site. And the next day, we had a group meeting, our team at CNN. We were on, it was actually, this was around COVID too. So we had a group and team meeting on Zoom, and the manager was just to reiterate for everyone, we don't want you publishing your personal opinions on social media or on your private websites. Please be careful of that, and please mind that, you know. And I watched, I was like, are they talking about me? You know, pretty sure they were. And then I did another one. I wrote another one. I forgot what else. I wrote something else right around the same time. And slowly then I left and I just started to press myself. I said, I'm going to speak for myself now. I don't have an NDA. I don't have any restrictions on me. I'm actually now investing in my own image and in my own voice. And I have to press into that fear. So it wasn't just, like I said, first it was a political statement that I would have otherwise not said after being 5 years at this company. Then it was like just other political observations. Then at the same time, I think there was a lot of controversy around gender. And, you know, I started doing my podcast and live stream, and people were like, don't talk about gender. It's too controversial and blah, blah, blah. And everybody wanted to stay away from it. And I had this deep, like, pain in my gut that I had to speak about. I knew that I could talk about the subject appropriately, that I could actually traverse it and bring light to the situation and help us understand it. To me, a lot of that controversy is not just about gender or about biology or any of these things. It's about linguistics. It's about how we perceive each other, you know. So I wrote about my views there, and I was nervous. You know, did I offend someone? Did I place, and have I alienated someone? You know what I mean? Like, again, back to those early rules, the rules of like networking, and you cast a wide net, and you need to be generally amenable and likable to as many people as possible. That this is your best strategy for life. That was the game that I used to play. And it took this other game, this pressing into fear game, to realize that, man, that was actually a limiting orientation. That was a limiting philosophy, a limiting strategy. Since then, it's you know, like, it's politics, gender, the media, my media critique. It took a while even to go deep into that. I worked at CNN, and I've had a media critique for a long time. And I was like, okay, how do I could talk about Fox. I would get a critique about Fox. And then I built up the courage to talk about Brian Stelter, who was a CNN anchor. And his claim to fame, his like speciality was that he was like the media literacy expert at CNN, right? And it was a joke. It was a joke, right? He appropriated language about media literacy. What he was actually doing was, he was a shill for the company. And I had fear about writing about what I knew about who Brian Stelter was. Brian Stelter would get on every Saturday. They'd give him a full show and blah, blah, blah. He was a well-received and respected person when he didn't deserve any of it. And I said, you know what? I'm going to talk about it. So I went on Facebook and started talking about it. I started writing about him, and I would take clips from his show and critique it. And that took a pressing into fear. That was the game I was playing. I noticed, how do I know where to go? How do I know what to say, what to point to? And it wasn't like, oh, go to the easy thing. Oh, go pick on the the lower rungs of the ladder. Go pick on queer people. Go pick on black women. Go pick on poor people like that. It was like, no, actually, I had an anxiety around all these networks I had and these sort of boundaries and these powerful institutions. And I knew that, my growth would come from playing that game. And I did it. And I went at Brian Stelter. And I swear to God, in fewer than like 3 weeks after I started talking about Brian Stelter, he got fired from CNN. And I remember I looked at Sheba and I was like, I was right. I knew I was right. I knew I was right. The anxiety was purely that, no one else was talking about Brian Stelter. The anxiety was that there's a whole culture that I had worked in where you revere these guys, the guys on television, Brian Stelter, Jake Tapper, Dana Bash. These are not journalists, but that you keep reverence for them, and you respect this whole arrangement. You respect the conversations that are happening on television. You know what I'm saying? And I learned when I did that it worked, that it was right. I learned that I was right. I developed the understanding that my intuition is strong. I developed the understanding that I can trust myself, actually. And the whole time, like I said, I'm nervous about it, and I was waiting for some sort of reaction, like, oh boy, let's see. So nobody could react to me. Like, I was correct. I had a strong analysis rooted in a structural analysis about cable news and about corporate news. What was I fearful of, right? What was I fearful of? I was simply fearful of the unknown. I was doing something I hadn't seen for real. I was pioneering something, and I was learning about myself in the process. Since then, it's gone further. Zionism, there's a genocide in Gaza. There's violence and expansion in the West Bank. There's violence in Lebanon. There's a very racist, supremacist government in the Likud government in Israel. And coming up in politics and coming up in the media, there's also this fear about talking about Zionism. There's a fear about talking about these things are boundaries, and you're taught to keep it safe, keep it clean, stay within those boundaries. You could have a long career if you handle it this way. Man, the game I'm playing, the game I've been playing has been pressing into fear. And it's led to more freedom. It's led to more freedom, becoming more comfortable with my ideas, becoming more comfortable and confident that the ideas and the approach and the perspective that I have, because I'm not only well read, educated, I'm well experienced, and I know what I'm talking about. My perception is real and valuable. And what I've learned is that stepping into these things that you fear, taking the risk to get on here. That's also, this has been part of it. This last, I think I'm on episode at least 60 here, going almost every day speaking. I've become more. This is the game I'm playing. The game is becoming unafraid. The game is becoming aligned with my intuition. The game is developing a rock solid trust of my own voice and my own ideas. And the game is noticing that stepping into the fear dissolves it, noticing that the fears aren't real. The fears feel very real. Some of the fears are well articulated, they are directly made clear. Others are insinuated and implied. Others are, you just look around and everyone's just abiding by a set of unspoken rules. You just see this agreement that people are in, and it makes sense. You might as well follow. But no, stepping into fear dissolves it. And the game I'm playing is the game where it's already been achieved. It's already been achieved, but I continue on this path. The game where, uh, uh, you know, the version of me a year, 2 years ago, looks at the current version with a smile and some pride. Um, freedom, awareness, openness. I don't have to second guess. I've been in the political arena for 5 years. I've been in the news media, corporate media for 5 years as well. Plus, I've seen how these people operate. The people you watch on the news, the ways that they avoid certain words, that they lean into certain words and keywords, and they avoid certain perspectives. Everyone kind of knows, and I'm not that. I don't have to worry about that. That's not the game that I've been playing, and that's not how I've developed. Because I don't play that game, I haven't developed those muscles of checking the wind and boundary setting and not being approved by the boss or some shit like this. I think that I know that it produces an entirely different person, and it produces an entirely different condition, and it lines you up for an entirely different path, different set of choices. Instead of a constricted set of choices, there's a massive, wide array of opportunities and approach. And the trust comes from knowing that actually I come from love. I used to really concern myself with, oh man, what if I say an offhand thing and it's offensive, or I say the wrong thing? There is no wrong thing. And I'm quite good at this. And what I have to say is worth being heard, worth being said, even if it's only me saying it. So that's the game that I'm playing. And that's the game. I want to share this with you because I want to share just how broad the actual game is, how vast the game can be, that we can set something different than just chasing the bag or surviving or being friendly to rich people or something like this entirely. Because I'm rich. I'm the source. And what a powerful thing to be. I feel great about it. So, a lot of these videos, I feel like I'm talking to sometimes a younger version of myself, and I'm so grateful that I've been able to develop this practice of coming over here and speaking candidly. So I want to say shout to my younger versions of myself. Shout to you for the games that you played back then, and the precautions and safety measures you took and how you navigated back then. And shout to you for getting me here, where the game is all about, it's no longer about boundaries and watching and being mindful. It is about expansion and living freely and genuinely and authentically from that place. You know what I'm saying? So what's the game that you're playing? I want you to think about it and consider it and give language to the game that you're playing. Because you're powerful and you are playing a game, whether you're aware of it or not. So hope you're having a great Saturday. Check out the rest of my the channel, the videos on this channel. I see the God in you. And yeah, I'll see you tomorrow.